Believe it or not, people still do carry around business cards, and for the people who do and don't want to bulk up the wallet, I made this leather business card holder with a double snap closure. Now this one here is an evergreen, beautiful pull-up leather, so it leaves really nice light streaks in this dark green leather, and it's paired with the most popular stitching color for this leather, citrus. Now one of the biggest differences in this video from previous ones is that I'm actually going to show you me punching out the stitching holes by hand using my Cinnabrox pricking irons, and that's going to give you this nice almost zigzag stitching pattern. Now that's a little bit different than using a sewing machine, which I use for a lot of my products, or punching out the stitching holes with my Glowforge, which leaves the holes in a circle pattern, so it's more of a straight stitch. The zigzag stitch, in my opinion, is a lot better looking, and because it's hand stitched, it's a lot stronger. Let me show you how it's made. Now, even though I'm still going to punch out all the stitching holes, I am going to use my Glowforge to cut out my template because I have it designed that way, and the Glowforge makes things so much easier. Now, when I have that cut out, I like to burnish off or sand off the laser char that happens on the edge, and especially with these pull-up leathers, because it's got that waxed and oiled layer, the waxy burnt edge kind of gets, a little bit more charred than usual, so I like to sand that off. From there, I like to bevel all of the edges for the top flap and the bottom flap that will end up folding over. Tokonole and a needle applicator is my method of choice for hand burnishing, and then I use a simple canvas cloth that I just kind of roll up in my hand to burnish that off and give it a nice glassy edge. And I love the way that this burnishes here. It gives it a really smooth, crisp, clear finish. From there, I want to mark my holes for the snaps that I'll be using, which are antique brass, by the way, and then I fold over the flap and then use those holes I punched out to mark the other holes for the bottom piece where it'll snap shut. Now, I wish I would have designed this for my Glowforge to actually just laser cut out the stitching holes, or the snap holes rather. I just hadn't gotten that far yet, and I didn't really think about it before I started this project today, so I decided to use my 1/8" hand punch and just do it by hand manually. From there, I use my arbor press to press in those antique brass snaps. Aquillim 315 is my glue of choice, and by the way, I'll leave all of these instruments that I kind of use and all the tools I use and supplies in the description in case you want to see more details and check it out for yourself. From there, I'm going to mark my stitching line 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, and instead of going to the sewing machine or using the Glowforge, I'm using my Cinnabrox pricking irons. And this pricking iron in particular is a 6-prong, and it's an inverted or a backward, I forget how they mention it on their site, but it's like the backwards stitching lines. So it gives you that kind of diagonal look to it. I personally really love using these tools. I used my starter kit for a while, came with some chisels, or pricking irons rather, and they bent very quickly, so cheap pricking irons will not last you a long time. You want to make sure you're using a punch pad like the one you saw there, that little yellowish kind of ugly looking punch pad, which I should replace at this point because I've had it for a couple of years. You want to make sure you're using one of those so your pricking irons don't bend, and if your pricking irons do bend, get rid of them immediately because your stitching lines will not be even anymore. And then I recommend picking up Cinnabrox. They're awesome pricking irons. This is not sponsored. They just happen to be one of the first upgraded tools that I picked up, and I do think pricking irons make a huge difference to your final product if you're hand stitching and hand punching those stitching holes. From there, sand off the edges, make sure they're nice and flush. Bevel them with my number 2 edge beveler from Palo Santo, Tokonole and canvas cloth again to finish things off, and then I like to just punch it with my whiskey glass stamp if the customer did not request a laser engraving, which I'm sure you've seen in some of my past videos. With that said, let me know what you think. This should fit right around 15 to 18 business cards. I was able to fit 13 of my own, which are thicker than your typical business card, so I'd say I estimate about 15 to 18 cards. Let me know what you think in the comments. I really want to hear your thoughts. A like and subscribe goes a long way to help build this small channel.